Marry someone you think would be a good mother and that has enough sense, generally speaking, to know that she wants children. Now, some women don't want children, and fair enough. And some women perhaps shouldn't have children. That's also possible. But the general rule of thumb is, especially once a woman's, in her mid-20s, if she doesn't know that she wants children or won't admit it, unless she has a viciously important reason, then she's not oriented properly psychologically. She doesn't know what's important in life. Now, that might also be the case with you, and it probably is, but as a rule of thumb, that's a really good one. Women do tend to mate across and up dominance hierarchies, and if you're like very attractive and you're very intelligent and you make a lot of money and you're very competent, it's like there's not a lot that's across and there's even less that's up, and so that's hard on women. And it actually, the way that actually works out is that, especially with regards to IQ for women, is that the higher the IQ that a woman has, the less likely it is that she's going to find a partner. And the effect is actually quite pronounced. And so that's pretty rough. Well, the first piece of advice probably would be don't pretend that it's not important, because it is important. And the next piece of advice I would say is, and this is practically speaking, is it's a lot easier now for people to find at least a potential partner than it was 20 years ago, because you have this tremendous technology that's available with regards to opening up the dating market. And I would say finding the right mate is like finding a good career, the next good career move. I know that's not a great analogy, but a huge part of that is just persistence. You have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince. I suppose that's one way of thinking about it. Look for someone that loves you and that wants to take care of you and that is oriented to some degree towards the same things that you are. That's also helpful. You can't eliminate the necessity of being attracted to one another. That's important. And that's mysterious, So for example, here's a funny thing. One of the things we know that attracts people to one another is bilateral symmetry. And so if you take men and you rank them by the symmetry of their faces, and then you give the asymmetrical men t-shirts to wear, clean t-shirts for a day, and the symmetrical men clean t-shirts to wear for a day, and then you give the t-shirts to women and you have them rate the odor, the women rate the odor of the symmetrical men as more attractive than the odor of the asymmetrical men. The next most important thing is trust, man. It's like there's no marriage that's successful without trust. You've got to tell each other the truth. And one of the reasons that Jung believed that marriage and an oath, and Carl Jung, as a bond was necessary, it's really wise. It's like, telling the truth to someone is no simple thing, because there's a bunch of things about all of us that are terrible and weak and reprehensible and shameful and all of those things. And they kind of have to be brought out into the open and dealt with. And you're not going to tell the truth about yourself to someone who can run away screaming when you reveal who you are. And so the marriage bond is something like, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to handcuff myself to you, and you're going to handcuff yourself to me. And then we're going to tell each other the truth, and neither of us are going to get to run away. And so once we know the truth, then we're either going to live together in mutual torment, or we're going to try to deal with that truth and straighten ourselves out jointly. And that's going to make us more powerful and more resilient and deeper and wiser as we progress together through life. And I think that's absolutely brilliant, because if you leave the back door open, man, you're going to use it. So the idea is that in the Christian marriage, for example, the man isn't the boss and the woman isn't the boss. The boss is the mutual personality composed by the seeking of truth in both of them, and that's conceptualized as their joint subjugation to the logos. And that is absolutely dead on, man. It's like the ruler of your marital life should be your vow to tell each other the truth. Because like in hard times during your life, when you've done something stupid and idiotic that might take you down, and you don't have anybody that you can turn to, if you have a partner that you can trust, you can go say, hey, I made a big financial mistake, man, and it's really torturing me, and I feel like a complete idiot, and it's really dangerous, and you guys are going to work your way through it. And that's a big deal. And there's a couple of things our culture gets really wrong, and one is it devalues marriage. That's really a very bad idea, because marriage is like a third of your life, and maybe more. And kids are a third of your life. And your life outside of marriage and kids is a third of your life, you know, approximately speaking. And to miss any of that is a massive, massive mistake. I will also say that for some people, missing one or more of those is necessary because they have a reason. You know, maybe they're brilliantly creative artists and they need to devote themselves entirely to their career, or they're outstanding in some way, and so they can justify the sacrifice of one part of that triad of being to another part. But generally speaking, it's a very dangerous thing, and it shouldn't be done. And also, kids get an absolutely terrible rap, you know, because kids are delightful if they're well behaved. One of the chapters in my new book is called "Don't Let Your Children Do Anything That Makes You Dislike Them." And you can do that, especially if you discuss it thoroughly with your spouse, the person that's helping you discipline the kids. And children are the best company because they're really enthusiastic about everything. They love doing new things. They really love you, so they're happy that you're around. Um, all you have to do is make sure they're not too hot and they're not too cold and they've had something to eat and they're not too tired, and you don't expect them to stay engaged in something for longer than they can manage. Because we used to take our kids when they were little out to restaurants, for example, and they could sit there no problem and behave really nicely when they were 2 and 3, but they couldn't do it for more than about 45 minutes. You can't push your luck. But I also noticed with little kids is that they got antsy and unreasonable about 5 to 10 minutes before the adults did too. It's just the adults were too stupid to notice. The kids would notice right away. Your experience of the world outside that's not you is a very strange experience because it isn't self-evident, for example, to me, that my wife is not me. We spend so much time together. She's in my experience so much. We have a joint past and a present and a joint future. The same with my kids and the people who are close to me. It isn't obvious to me that my wife is less valuable to me than I am to me. She's certainly more valuable to me than some arbitrary body part like an arm or a leg, you know, and people are perfectly capable of making gestures of physical self-sacrifice in order to rescue people that they love. And so just exactly who you are and just exactly who the external world is not clear at all. And so the last conjunction for Jung was the eradication of the distinction between your subjective experience as you and your objective experience as you, which is to say, for example, that if I'm walking down the street and I encounter someone in trouble, and that trouble calls to me as something that I could conceivably do something about, the fact that that trouble isn't set right in the world is actually because it's part of my experience, is actually my problem.